Wednesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns back on the practice field, at least those who were able to practice back on the practice field. Some more injury news and updates. The Browns did, in fact, place Grant Delpit on injured reserve. He might be back for the playoffs if they're able to make it there. Duron Harmon signed to the active roster from the practice squad. Joey Fisher signed, who is an offensive tackle. I guess I need to point that out. Also signed to the practice squad. Obo Okenrankwo has a pectoral injury that could end up putting him on the injured list and his season second on the Browns with 4.5 sacks. They're still gathering information to see how severe that pectoral injury is. Browns not practicing today with injuries. Juan Thornhill, Okenrankwo, Kareem Hunt, center Ethan Posick, Jordan Elliott. Guys getting a day of rest. They may also be nursing some injuries. Murray Cooper, Anthony Walker, Joel Bitonio, David Njoku, and Myles Garrett. Denzel Ward did practice and said in his media availability he is hoping to be able to return to the field to face the Bears Sunday at 1. With all that, let's welcome in Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. Brad, let's start with Delpit. That's another safety that goes down. McLeod has gone down. Thornhill is nursing an injury. But a nice kind of under-the-radar signing a few weeks back for Duron Harmon, who is a pretty good safety.
No doubt about it. And a perfect guy to have on the back end and be that deep third, ball hawking, field general, not going to come down and really make a whole lot of plays against the run or things of that nature. But if you trust your front and need a guy simply to just stay on top of receivers, help the corners out, and make maybe a couple splash plays, turning the ball over, getting a pass breakup, things of that nature, that's what Duron Harmon's been the last couple of years. They could do a lot worse in finding a week 14 or week 15 reserve safety on the back end.
Yeah, the other thing is now you're certainly at minimum your fourth and fifth tackles because DeJuan Jones on the IR yesterday, Conklin and Wills also on the IR. Wills made it official yesterday as well. Posick, the center, banged up. Teller and Bitonio have been healthy, but how do you deal with that if you are trying to design an offense?
It's a tough one, right? Especially for now a quarterback who's not the most mobile guy, but I do think Flacco has always done a good job of trusting to step up in the interior of a pocket, and I think both in the run game and the pass game, it comes down to that. You have two of the highest paid guards in the National Football League on your offensive line. They need to, play like it. And, whether that's a lot of pulling in the run game or helping the tackles with, dealing with stunts and twists, but also even just chipping certain, pass rushers if they're available or taking on, more responsibilities with combo blocks and everything they're getting asked to do. If there's a backup center now too, that's why you got Bitonio and Teller there on these big deals. Easier said than done, but it's their time to shine.
All right, Stephen A. Smith, ESPN's First Take. Browns in the playoffs this season.
Browns, contenders or pretenders?
I'm going to say contenders because they've got the #1 defense in yards allowed in their first and third down defense. Their offense lead the league in rushing attempts, and they're the 7th-ranked rushing attack. We keep bringing up the name Kareem Hunt, like he's nobody.
Player.
This is a guy that can ball. It's just that he wasn't Nick Chubb. What I find myself, Shannon and RC, fantasizing about is what are they going to be next year when Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb are back? That's going to be something to behold from Cleveland. The only reason I would say that they're a contender as opposed to a pretender right now, even with the 38-year-old Joe Flacco as your starting quarterback, 5 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks, by the way, is because you have an experienced individual behind center as opposed to a novice. He's immobile, we get that part, but he's experienced. If you can run the ball and you can defend, you two are two of the people who taught me that is a winning formula in playoff competition because that kind of play travels. You can defend and you can run the football. The combination of those two things to me, combined with how haphazard the National Football, the AFC Conference specifically has been, says to me they got a shot where they could hurt some people.
And Brad, that's That's probably fair. That is probably as fair an assessment as you're going to get from Stephen A. Smith about where the Browns stand.
I think the last piece there really is the key too, and not even just about Cleveland. It's also just looking at, and obviously we just spent 5 minutes talking about injuries to kick off the show, but that's kind of the case across the AFC. Things have leveled out in the AFC North in particular a little bit, but obviously teams still reeling in Pittsburgh, Cincinnati playing Jake Browning the rest of the year, et cetera, et cetera. But you look at Miami losing a bunch of guys in that game on Monday night against Tennessee, maybe without Tyreek Hill for a week or two. Center Connor Williams goes down, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say this, I do understand the case. No one wants to play this Cleveland Browns defense come playoff time. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. No one wants to play that defense, especially if there's bad weather and that limits the passing game for an opponent, things of that nature. They're going to be a tough out. But it's also just looking at the landscape, like you said. It's also, we thought this was going to be a gauntlet, incredible conference, and it just has not really shaped up that way.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
Hey, Dave. Hey, guys. Love your show. Danielle. Really happy about the guys pulling together. Next man up mentality. Really glad we got Flacco. Hopefully we can pull this off, and we got the top seed for the wild card. Hopefully we don't squander it. What do you guys think about us winning the division? And also, what do you guys think about who's going to fill in for Ward? All right, thanks. Woof, woof. Love ya. Ho, ho, ho.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. So winning the division's a tough one. They're two back of the Ravens. Now the Ravens have to play the Dolphins. They have to play the Jaguars. And they have to play the 49ers. They have some tough games. You're asking a lot, two back with 4 to go, to make up 2 games on the Ravens at this point.
Yeah, we have at PFF with our power rankings and our model that looks at not only the team strength, but also forecasting the opponents ahead, looking at strength of schedule. They're at middle of the pack, but only a 7% chance of winning the AFC North, but still a greater than 50% odds of making the playoffs as a wild card, around 70%. So, maybe that changes a little bit if we add in all these new unfortunate injured reserve components and it tweaks our strength rating of the team, but it shouldn't by a large margin. You still have a lot of the stars there. Yeah, they should be getting into the playoffs. I do think the division is a bit much to ask, but hey, you never know.
Especially the way it's gone this year in the AFC. You're truly, Kevin Stefanski's been saying it, week to week. That's probably so you don't go crazy if you're involved in it. This was kind of interesting. So Joe Flacco, one of only 5 quarterbacks in NFL history since the 1970 merger to throw 5 touchdown passes over his first 2 games with a new team. That from Jake Trotter, who covers the Browns. Brad, he's looked really good. The offense, I thought he would be good. He's looked much better than I thought. And you could make an argument outside of the second half of the Ravens or maybe the Titans game, this offense has looked better than it has all year.
Yeah, it's a great stat pull from Jake there. No question about it. And I think it does speak back to just having a guy who's experienced, who has literally seen everything and had everything thrown in his face. And I also, obviously, I guess the enemy right now is Baltimore, his former team, but he also has a feel for the division. He probably knows a lot about, hey, what is Mike Tomlin trying to accomplish? What does, I guess maybe he missed Zach Taylor or barely crossed paths, but you know what I'm getting at, right? There's such a comfort and an understanding with not only the NFL game, but also some of the particular AFC opponents he's facing. And yeah, I think he really has just the trust and confidence. Look, there's going to be some turnovers. There have been some turnovers, but he's willing to push the ball downfield, to trust these playmakers to make plays, has a great connection with David Njoku, and seems to like throwing to him a whole lot. He's been awesome.
So Flacco was asked, a couple of his teammates have said he's got just a calming influence. Even late in games on the sidelines, he was asked about that today.
I don't think it's actively what I'm trying to do out there at this point, but I hope that my personality and my playing style can definitely bring that along with it. And that's what a quarterback's job is. That's what a leader's job is. So I'm glad to hear that. And like I said, at this point in my career, it's not like I'm super conscious of it anymore, but definitely want to be that guy.
Joe, kind of off of Tom's question, just about, you've been in a lot of big situations, big moments over your career. Now you're in the midst of a playoff push here. How much is that experience going to help you, and what can you impart on these guys, as they go, try to close this out?
It's always tough to quantify, like, the experience thing and how much it actually matters, because in the moment on Sunday it comes down to what you're doing on that individual play. But I'm a big believer in that being in tough situations prepares you for the toughest of situations. And if you're a team that deals with a lot of adversity and plays these tight games, even though it's not exactly what you want all the time and it's not perfect, and it definitely prepares you for games that are going to have to be that way down the stretch.
And as I'm listening to that, I think the Browns would say uncle to adversity. Adversity has kind of won that out. But the one thing is, you worry about the game slowing down. Literally, he's been in so many big games against so many elite level. The game couldn't get any slower for him than it is. It's what you want from your quarterback.
No doubt about it. And the funny thing, too, is he's thrown 40-plus passes in both of his games. It's not even like he's sitting back there and having, with the run game, the defense, and that hopefully does take over some games. And like he said, it's nice to occasionally have some easy wins where maybe you're kind of bleeding clock in a 4-minute offense with the run game. But he's thrown the ball 40-plus times back-to-back games now. He talked about how, he's happy that teammates think he is that presence. We joke a lot about Joe Flacco. He's always kind of, for whatever reason, been like a funny name to get thrown around. His playoff run when they won the Super Bowl is one of the greatest runs in NFL history for a 4-game stretch for a quarterback. Like, that's not hyperbole. It's not exaggeration. And obviously, he isn't that guy anymore. That was when he was, in his mid-20s. But he has. He's played through it all. He's lived through it all. I think he's also probably learned a ton from being in an organization with a great defense, how to attack different coverages, how to identify different coverages, how to use the rules and responsibilities against opposing defenses and kind of know their weak spots or where, certain coverages are deficient, and you're just seeing it. Like, there is a calming presence to him. He's getting the ball out very quickly, under 2.5 seconds last week on average, because I think he just knows what he wants to accomplish. Just a matter of making sure he does, more often than not.
Brad Spielberger and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we will talk a little bit about the defense. Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus and I will return after this timeout.
Ooh, holiday gold! The $20 scratch-off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got Merry and Bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million!
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game.
We continue talking Browns with Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, I got a question for you. In that game against the Jaguars, Myles Garrett sacked the quarterback on the extra point, but they did not count that as a sack in his statistics. Is there a reason why they didn't do that? Thanks.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails, Brad. I actually had to look this up. So because it's an extra point attempt, it is not considered it's an untimed down. It's not considered a play from scrimmage. So no rushing, passing, or receiving yards are credited in that. So it's just a conversion attempt. The same as if you made or missed a point after. Having said that, Myles Garrett, he played pretty well against the Jaguars. He was frustrated with and some people were surprised that he said something about it. It's got to get frustrating to get chipped, held, pulled. He gets something literally every play. And when you feel like stuff is not being called against you, I get him. I'm surprised, quite frankly, he hadn't gotten frustrated a lot sooner.
Fair point, no question about it. Yeah, the sack point is funny. He was our highest graded pass rusher on the week, so that's why PFF exists. 0 sacks and a 92 pass rush grade, and I think a pass rush win rate in the high 20s or low 30s, which is elite for a single game. But obviously, his season long number is in that range, which is why he's one of the best, if not the best, defensive players in the NFL. Yeah, it's crazy. You watch some film, and I think it is why you're seeing him having more success with a Jim Schwartz, like rushing from the A gaps, or just more involved, more moving him around and not letting opposing offenses do that. To draw the comparison everyone does, like TJ Watt is a wide 9 outside rusher on the left side of the formation on 95% of snaps. That's what he does. Yeah, he's phenomenal at it, but he also gets chipped, doubled, all these various things. And I think, what Jim Schwartz has untapped is just making it harder for opposing offenses to do that. But yeah, they're still going to do it as many times as humanly possible. And I hear you. He probably does deserve to draw more calls. We always talk about, you can probably call holding on like every play. I get that. I do agree with that sentiment overall. Maybe some more superstar calls for Myles Garrett, though.
Yeah, he kind of equated it to Shaquille O'Neal never getting fouls called. And it is because he's he's that big, that physical, and that athletic and agile. All right, another guy who's been outstanding, Martin Emerson. Brian Boldinger, former offensive lineman, with an analysis of Emerson against Jaguars.
Browns are doing a lot of things to win these games, a lot of things right. Martin Emerson, you want to play man coverage? This is how you play it right here. You can't play it any better. Get your head back on the ball, get your right arm in there, no pass interference, no handsy. Great play. One big play after another. 3rd and 8. All right? You want to throw it to Zay Jones on Martin Emerson's side of the field? Hello, Zay. Not on my watch. Not on my side of the field. You know what you got to do? Get your punt team out here. And then you just watch. You just watch here. He might not be saving lives this holiday season, but he's saving touchdowns. It's a holiday season. I mean, can we get some Martin Emerson jerseys underneath the tree? Oh, did I say something about the holidays? Did I say something about Christmas? Because there are some gifts, and the gifts were coming. Like in phase, all right, miscommunication, he'll take it. He's working on the jug machine. He's catching everything they want to throw his way. Like, he's having a great season, as are most of the defensive backs for this Cleveland Brown defense. It's a good holiday season. You know what's better than interceptions and gifts? Wins. And that's what the Browns are doing. And they're letting everybody know in Jacksonville, not in this dog pound.
And Brad, a physical guy, a couple of interceptions. I don't think even the Browns thought, they knew he was going to be good. They saw that, took him in the 3rd round. He might be better than they thought, quicker than they thought.
I think it's entirely possible. Yeah, I mean, you saw right there. I think it's a cover 2 look on the interception. Has the understanding to kind of go out of where he probably is supposed to be based on the zone assignment and make the pick. But I think the real reason why he's your starter on the outside more often than not, and I still do like Greg Newsome, think he's a good player, but that trail technique you saw in man coverage that Baldy highlighted in the beginning, he is phenomenal. Staying in the receiver's hip pocket, like you said, not being too handsy and jumping early. He was just calm, cool, collected. Put his forearm right where the ball was going to be between the, in the breadbasket of the receiver, and just got a very simple, very easy pass breakup. But it's not simple or easy. It's a very, very complicated thing to do. He was all over the tape in this game. Even on Sunday during the broadcast, you kept seeing him time and time and time again. He was awesome.
And again, in the absence of Denzel Ward the last 2 games, they've really needed it. He also kind of seems to understand. And he still gets penalties. All DBs are going to get penalties called. He seems to understand when he can be physical and when he kind of has to pull back, which, again, that's the sign of a really elite corner.
I think it also signals, too, just more growing confidence. You talk about now how he's young and maybe ahead of schedule. Like, that is one thing. Even some really, really good young corners, they're kind of a little bit grabbier, or they're, like you said, they don't necessarily know when to ease up a little bit. And it's not that they are like bad or don't know how to play football. I think it's more, okay, if I give up a little bit of separation? Am I going to give a big catch? Or, is the guy going to make a move on me? It's more just trusting I have a decent idea what route he's running, or I know where the quarterback probably is in his progression, or I know the pass rush is probably going to get home, especially when you're in trail like that and not facing the line of scrimmage in any way, shape, or form. It's easier to do that when you're in zone, reading the quarterback's eyes as opposed to just reading the receiver's hips, but it comes with experience, and I think in that regard, he's also ahead of schedule. Like, again, to throw out a comp, I think Joey Porter Jr. in Pittsburgh has been great, but that is the one area for him. Sometimes you see him, just kind of latch onto a guy because I think it's more just with experience that'll go away. It's not an ability issue. Emerson's been confident and comfortable in this defense.
All right, before we go to break, I know you wrote an article looking ahead 2024 free agency rankings, and one of the guys that's Browns defensive lineman, who's been a pretty big part of it for him, is on that list. 42 checking in top free agents. Zadarius Smith, current projection, 2 years, $24 million, $19 million in guaranteed is what you think they might be looking at. What are your thoughts? Do you think the numbers probably don't bear out how valuable he has been lining up next to Myles Garrett? I think Myles Garrett's success has kind of been because Zadarius Smith has helped him.
You have to look at it that way. And I know the sack numbers aren't there like they have been in years past, but first of all, his pressure rate, his pass rush win rate, his ability to move all over the line, compared him to Robert Ayers there, who was also an edge rusher, but a 280-pounder, was kind of like a 5-tech to Nico Autry, like a different kind of player, maybe even then as Zadarius. But that versatility and that ability is also massively valuable. But yeah, so the sack production not being there, he has back-to-back pass rush grades in the mid-80s. And his pass rush, like I said, all the underlying metrics are super, super strong, and that is more predictive than, just looking at sack totals. So he's been everything they've asked for. They paid him, $11.67 million this year. He's been worth every single penny in my eyes. I don't see why you wouldn't be comfortable going right back to the well in that same range. He's been a perfect trade acquisition, and I'm sure they're happy with it.
Yeah, and again, he's one of the reasons that defensive line has created havoc for opposing offenses. Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus and I can step aside, take another timeout. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Carrie, diehard Browns fan since '99. I don't think I've ever been this excited for this season. I am like wacko for Flacco. We are 8-5. Oh, I am so freaking excited. I love the show. Love the show. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Brad, Cleveland has taken to Joe Flacco pretty quickly. It's kind of interesting, and I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this. Flacco will start his third game for the Browns. That equals the most games they have had the same quarterback all season. It was games 1, 2, and 3 with Watson. How tough is it to get an offense, any consistency or rhythm, when you haven't had a quarterback play 4 consecutive games?
Completely. And also, first of all, wacko for Flacco is phenomenal. A-plus content right there from the caller. But I think the big thing, too, is we talk about this a bunch. We talk about P.J. Walker. We talk about a DTR, who I do think are more similar. Like, the amount of time it takes Joe Flacco to have a 3-step, 5-step, 7-step drop is different than a Deshaun Watson. Or if you're an offensive lineman, Watson, I think, kind of tends to drop 11, 12 yards sometimes and not 10, probably because he knows he's springier, he can get back into, the pocket quicker. Like, all these little details and timing, the way the routes line up with his footwork, all of these things are really, really hard to just constantly be adjusting and changing for the quarterback, for the offensive line, and for the receivers themselves, Or maybe, does Flacco have preferences on how far down the field do certain guys break off certain routes, or are they going to adjust based on the coverage they see? Because obviously a big part of a lot of offenses, with sight adjustments, you see what the coverage is, and you run a different route. Like all these various things, or you sit down in zone, yada, yada, yada. There's so much nuance and complexity to this situation. That's why it's even all the more impressive. It's been, pretty smooth so far, and maybe it gets even better as there's more comfort built and just more understanding between everyone. But yeah, I get why fans are wacko for Flacco, and let's just keep the positive vibes rolling.
All right, Scott Pioli, who was a former personnel man, former general manager in the NFL, on if he thinks Flacco's the most consequential backup quarterback this season.
I want to say this first of all, the job that Andrew Berry and his personnel staff and then Kevin Stefanski in terms of his staff getting Joe Flacco ready. One group of people found him, brought him in, the other group has developed him. My biggest concern right now is that Joe Flacco, as we know, we see quarterbacks do a very good job for 2 games. We're talking about a quarterback, though, that's going to be 39 years old. In these first 2 weeks, in these first 2 games he's played, one was the other one was a very good job against the Jacksonville Jaguars this past weekend. When you have a 39-year-old quarterback coming off of fresh legs, these hits are going to start to accumulate. His body's going to feel a lot different in week 4, which it is him on the roster right now. So it's going to be interesting. He may be a very important player. Here's what Joe Flacco needs to do. He needs to make sure he doesn't lose the game, because when you have the best, or arguably the best defense in the National Football League as a quarterback, you have a real good chance to make a run.
And that's a really good point, Brad. I thought it, but the way he put it into context, you have to be concerned. Does the 38-year-old body bounce back enough to be able to do the things you need it to do?
A good point, no question. I think part of, you look at all the incompletions and people may be pointing out that he's been sub 60%. I think he's thrown the ball away when he feels like he needs to, and not maybe a younger version a decade ago says, I'm going to stand in, take a shot to the ribs, but try to deliver a strike or wait for a route to come open, or just live to see the next down. Let's just play through it and not worry about it. And that's key. What do you have? 2 sacks the first week, 1 sack hits on top of that. I think especially with more and more injuries up front, with more teams adjusting to what they're doing, and probably have a better scouting report on the specific Kevin Stefanski, Browns, Joe Flacco offense, he's going to need to lean into that more and just trust the defense to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I am leaving 1 or 2 plays a game on the field. I trust my defense is going to get a 3 and out, and I'll be right back out there. I think that is the key. And you know what? Maybe it doesn't work, but avoiding a big hit, like you said, it's a great point. It's hard to recover. He came in so fresh, hadn't played probably for the longest time since he was, 15 years old. It's a different game when you're 38.
All right, let's take a look at this chart. This is a running back negative plays versus explosive run rate. And when you look at this, x-axis, so across, is explosive run rate, y-axis is negative run rate. Jerome Ford is the one that's kind of bottom in the middle. So a lot of explosive runs, but a lot of negative runs. It's approaching a little over 8% explosive runs, but over 16% negative runs. You look up, and Kareem Hunt is on the other extreme. Doesn't have a lot of explosive runs, but doesn't have many negative runs at all. So I guess the two of them, that explains a little bit why you use them in tandem. The question I have is, what do you do to get a running game going when you don't have Nick Chubb and you don't have your tackles? I mean, do you try to get an extra? They were using Nick Harris as a fullback. Now Nick Harris might be your starting center. Do you still go back to an additional tackle as a tight end and try to load up and just out-muscle teams?
You can do it both ways, right? You can go heavier personnel, or you can go lighter personnel and spread the defense out, get fewer players in the box, and see if you can take advantage of that. And I think that does tie into where Ford is at. That chart is funny with the juxtaposition. I really think it's kind of showing, not even just stylistically, but a young running back versus an old one. He does at times, I think, wants to bounce too many plays. And so you're going to get negatives where he's hoping to maybe be patient at the line, or maybe get to the edge when he probably could have just made cut up field, between the tackles and taken a 4-yard gain and say, well, why didn't I live to see if I can bounce it outside and break off an explosive? And that has happened at times. It's also led to 1-2 yard losses, or you make it all the way to the boundary, but you gain a yard, things of that nature. So with more time and more experience, I think you do realize, again, with this offense, with this defense, take the 4 yards, get us a 2nd and 6, a 3rd and 2, whatever, and we'll just go from there. But yeah, I think you could go either direction. I do think they'll probably have a lot of heavy jumbo sets, multiple tight end looks with Kevin Stefanski. I think that probably is going to be a big part of what they do.
All right, so this past Sunday, Dustin Hopkins broke the Browns' franchise record, most 50-yarders in a single season. He made his 8th, and he's 8 for 8 from 50-plus. How good of a season is Dustin Hopkins having, and how big of a role has he played in the Browns being 8-5?
Been huge. It's been huge, right? Obviously, a somewhat controversial decision to move on from a young, very early draft pick, considering the position. And look, I think very highly of this front office. I think there's a ton of very, very smart people there. They're obviously at the forefront of analytics and whatnot. And they certainly have data that suggests those picks make sense. I have never thought it makes any sense in the world to use anything before a 6-rounder on a kicker, punter, what have you. I just think it's a waste of an asset. Not to rewrite history on what happened, but anyway, like, Hopkins has been great. You make this decision, you have to go not only make the decision, but also say, we're not going to sign some guy off the street. We're going to make a trade and go out and get an established veteran player. Like, we're not going to just kind of let this fall by the wayside, which was probably another kind of doubling down and maybe more criticism. And flash forward, here we are. He's been, excellent.
Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. Now I'm going to step aside, take one more timeout. Other side of the break, Colin Cowherd. Are the Browns in his top 10 in the NFL? We'll find out. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. Colin Cowherd from the Herd with Colin Cowherd, his top 10 in the NFL heading into Week 15.
Number 7.
I mean, Kevin Stefanski deserves credit. Cleveland at 7. They've used 4 different quarterbacks. I can't believe how good Joe Flacco is. I can't believe it. He was on the couch. They're 3-1 against teams that currently lead their division. It's a really good football team. Now, with Joe Flacco, there's a ceiling. There's an offensive ceiling. But, I mean, if you watch that Jaguars game, they pushed those guys around for 3 quarters. Cleveland at 7.
And Brad, that's probably a fair assessment. I would say, though, I think Flacco probably raised the ceiling from where it would be with DTR. Just because he can stretch the field. Flacco gives them a puncher's chance against anybody. Because you mess up a coverage, it's a 60-yard touchdown.
And that's a huge piece, no question, especially come playoff time, too, where the game is different, right? Playoff football is not the same as regular season football, and the advanced scouting for opponents is going to be cranked up to 11, and there's just going to be more and more, very specific matchup type approaches and all these various different things. Like you said, it's a key point, like capitalizing on busted coverages or identifying where to go pre-snap to change a player's route or shift your protection based on a sim pressure you've seen before, or whatever the case may be, you're going to see more and see new things that you've probably never seen before. And for DTR, that's happening in the preseason, right? Like when teams are running 5 plays. For Flacco, he'll still probably get some things thrown at him, but he'll know how to adjust and how to adapt on the fly and stay confident, stay poised, keep his composure, have good footwork in the pocket, all those things. So, yeah, obviously from Watson, the ceiling is lower, but compared to the PJ Walker, DTR Browns, I'm with you.
All right, Kevin Stefanski met with media today, talked about the Bears team that the Browns will face Sunday here at Cleveland Browns Stadium.
3-1 in their last 4, 11 takeaways in their last 3. You just turn on the tape. This is a good football team. I think it's starting with their offense. Justin Fields is a challenge. He is so big and so strong, can make every throw. And DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, you name it, good players really all over that offense, and it's a huge challenge. Defensively, I think Coach Eberflus does a great job, having gone against him before. We have a lot of coaches that know Coach Flus well. He's really good. Puts his guys in positions to make plays, and they have playmakers. I think you really go to all 3 levels of the defense, and I think they have playmakers, good players. So huge challenge.
And Brad, they beat the Lions in their last game, and before the bye, they probably should have beaten the Vikings, so they would have won their last 4. Fields is the kind of guy that just seems to give this defense, which is really good, problems. Mobile quarterback who is tough to bring down.
The Browns haven't been quite as high, I want to say, in man coverage than years past, but it kind of goes back to what we talked about, where when you are on a trail technique, your back is to the quarterback as a DB. And when a guy can take off and scramble and you're not even looking at him and can't, click and close and come up and make a tackle, it just adds more and more yards to when he takes off in open space and makes guys miss or bowls guys over. So, yeah, it presents a unique challenge. I do think you'll see a lot of spying from Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I know Anthony Walker's dinged up, maybe him as well. 2 guys that are, quick laterally, can play out near the line and not really blitz or not, anything like that, but just kind of wait and mirror Justin Fields. And if he takes off, try to make a tackle before he gets to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th level. That is going to be a key for this defensive performance. He's been confident. And the last piece for him, too, yes, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney coming on, all that. This offensive line, the last couple of weeks, has been better than it's been in years. They're healthy now. The young players are playing better. And you can tell Fields trusts the protection a little more, stands in a little bit longer, or moves up in the pocket instead of taking off all the time. Because as good as the scrambles are, sometimes you want to hit those, late developing plays. This Bears team is peaking right now, no question about it. So
this from Bears, PFF Bears tweet, and it kind of gives a little bit of credence to what you're talking about. Justin Fields, 8.2% adjusted completion rate since week 12. 2nd among quarterbacks during that period. So that not only do you have to worry about his legs, he is staying in the pocket and finding his receivers. And I know DJ Moore's got an ankle issue, but that's a guy that he's been a problem for defenses facing Chicago this last few weeks.
Yeah, no, he's been a revelation. It was a great trade acquisition for them, best receiver they've had in a long time. I think the thing, too, going to the completion percentage is, so the shot plays have been there. I think this past game against Detroit was his best game throwing of the intermediate part of the field in quite some time. The last piece, though, too, which I think will be a part of how they play Cleveland with a great pass rush, is they've really leaned into their screen game and kind of drawing up the pressure, letting edge defenders and even interior guys get, behind the line of scrimmage and then dishing it off to one of 3 running backs that can take it on a tunnel screen and make some guys miss, or even some receivers, and DJ Moore in particular as well. So they are going to, I think that's going to be another thing they do a lot of, is short passes and hope those guys get yards after the catch, kind of mitigate the pass rush and not let them get home as often as they obviously have been all year long.
And again, without Grant Delpit, that's a guy that you would count to be there and tackle in space. So tackling going to be a key for the Browns. Also came out today, a little bit of a surprise. Matt Eberflus told reporters Yannick Ngakoue, the edge rusher for the Bears, broken ankle, and he's done for the season. So that will, without a doubt, affect the pass rush on Joe Flacco. They still do have Montez Sweat. Defensively, 11 turnovers the last 3 weeks. That has been a problem for the Browns to have the most turnovers in the NFL. How opportunistic has this Bears defense been creating turnovers?
Extremely. And it is, a huge part of it is trading for Montez Sweat. He is now the leader where opposing offenses have to account for him. He's not getting chipped and doubled at a Myles Garrett rate, but he certainly is drawing attention. And it's freed up guys in the interior like the rookie Javon Dexter, like an Andrew Billings, the nose tackle, who has some juice as well, and various other guys that have been able to get home, DeMarcus Walker, Yannick Ngakoue a little bit, as well. So, that's a huge part of it, but also this young coverage group has really come along. Kyler Gordon in the slot was, frankly, last year one of the worst slot cornerbacks in the NFL. And this year he's been awesome. He has been great against the run as always, but now stickier in coverage, a little bit more opportunistic, tipping some passes. And then, look, Jalen Johnson is our highest graded cornerback in the entire NFL for a reason. The only knock on his game he really could have before this year was a lack of ball production. Well, he has a pick 6 and 4 total picks. I think all of those have come in the last 8 weeks or so. They really have been. Jaquan Brisker at safety, the young player as well, was everywhere in their past game. They've been flying around the football field. The linebackers they spent a bunch of money on, and Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards have been great. Like, the whole unit is just kind of, after a slow start, coming together, playing confident, playing fast, and they will turn you over if you give them a chance.
All right, before I let you go, key matchup. What do you think is something to pay attention to that could decide this one?
So I mentioned the young offensive line, and Braxton Jones at left tackle is a good football player. I think is going to be a good football player potentially for a while. The one issue with him is against power rushers. He struggles with speed to power. He struggles with the bigger, more physical defensive ends. I think he holds his own, against the outside linebacker types. Myles Garrett versus Braxton Jones could go a very, very long way in deciding this game. Myles Garrett has an advantage against everyone, but how big of an advantage can he have against Braxton Jones, I think, is a huge, huge piece here.
Brad Spielberger, Pro Football Focus, as always. Great stuff. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Brad.
Yep, thank you, guys.
Brad Spielberger, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff with the NFL and the Browns on Pro Football Focus. We're at Upside. Take a quick time out. Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report straight ahead. We continue talking Browns. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Holiday gold! The $20 scratch-off?
It has a 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright. No fair. It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve. Because I am a future leader of this great nation. I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in. I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity. A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, Frank from Cleveland. Quick question for you. How much do you think it would cost to keep Joe Flacco around next year as the backup? And then Deshaun's the starter, Flacco's the backup, and this way DTR can learn from two good pros. All right, I appreciate you taking my call, Dave. I love you, brother. Be safe, be good. Happy holidays.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report. Jack, I guess the first thing is Joe Flacco would have to want to continue playing at age 39. I kind of like the idea. But what are your thoughts on that? If he wanted to come back, I guess it wouldn't. Can't imagine it'd cost a whole lot.
Yeah, if I'm Joe Flacco, career earnings just of what's from on the field is 175 million. Who knows what he might have earned in other stuff off the field, any deals he might have done. Lots and lots of money. If I'm him, why would I want to go through an off-season? I would not be interested in that at all. Go, enjoy yourself, spend time with the family. If it's a case of, hey, Deshaun Watson's gone down injured or another team's lost their quarterback and you think they're a good team worthy of competing, that would be the time I'd go and sign. I wouldn't be going through the whole process as a backup. But you never know. Maybe he will. And if he wants to, yeah, it's not going to cost much, a couple of million. He's going to be there because he wants to be there. It's not about money at that stage. So if I was in his shoes, I'd be like, no, I'm good. Ring me if Deshaun Watson gets injured. But I'm going to enjoy myself here.
Yeah, I completely get that line of thinking. All right, let's. We always get questions relative to the Browns' salary cap. So you tweeted this out, and let's take a look at it. So 2023, Browns plus $33 million to the cap. 2024, they're over the cap, $19 million. So I know you've written an article, and we always talk about this. Take us through the Browns' ability to make any type of moves that they need to make, and kind of how they philosophically deal with the cap, and is it sustainable the way they're doing it?
Yeah, so part of this was big news that dropped at the weekend, and obviously coming from Ian Rappaport, it was presented very much as a big positive of, hey, the salary cap's going up next year. It's expected to be over 240 million, which for the average person reading it seemed like good news. It was the NFL bigging it up. What we were actually expecting is something around the region of 256 million next year, sort of for where the cap was trending. This was meant to be the final year in 2023 of dealing with sort of losses due to the COVID years, because they balanced that out over several years rather than taking the hit all in one year for teams. So it was one that we were expected to see a big jump up, and that's not going to be the case. So that's why if you'd have seen, I was predicting sort of about 6 million over the cap next year. That's shifted because we've had Grant Delpit's extension, and then we've had this move, which has reduced the amount of salary cap space next year. It's not a disaster or anything. It's just, hey, there's probably about another 10 million less that they were probably looking at maybe spending in free agency that they don't have available. But the way they're doing it is they're paying players money, but they're spreading it out over a few years. This isn't quite what we're seeing in the NBA with deferred salaries. They're giving the players money now, but you can just spread it out. So perfect sustainable what the Browns are doing, but the way I model it and look at what they're spending, just with the changes announced over it's probably about 10 million less they'll spend this offseason. But to be honest, there's not that many guys in free agency they're set to lose. So Darius Smith's the only guy, and we talk about over 5 million going into free agency. But don't be expecting any big splashy signings unless they're going to start getting rid of guys like Chubb, like Bitonio, like Teller, like Njoku. Those are the sort of players with no guaranteed salary. They're not going to have a load of money to go out and sign a load of free agents this year.
All right. So another way that they can find some salary cap money, Deshaun Watson's contract. What do you expect? How do you expect them to deal with that? And I know you've written an article on that, and there's kind of two charts that you looked at. Take us through that article and kind of the outcomes or the options, what you see might happen with Watson's contract.
Yeah, so Watson's contract was always designed of, we saw year one, so the blue money. And the way I lay this out is each year it pays in 46 million. So down the right of that, you can see 46, and it's color coded just for different colors so people can understand what happens with that 46 million. So when it signs as a signing bonus, he gets all that money in that 2022, but it breaks down over 5 years. And that's not money that when you cut him in the future or anything like that, dead cap is seen as this like scary thing. And it is a pretty harsh word, dead. But in all honesty, it's just like if you buy a house and you're paying back the mortgage afterwards, you still own the house. You're still making a payment on the house. You're just balancing that over time. And so the same thing here. Year 2, they do a restructure. I'm expecting year 3, we're just going to get another restructure here. Perfectly fine. What we expect. If he plays really, really well this season, that's when they might come to the table. Magically changes there. And that's where they will then potentially do an extension. If he's playing badly, they're probably still going to restructure him, because what you want is push the cap hit out into the future. The salary cap is going to keep going up. So $1 today is a lot more valuable than $1 in 3 years' time, where the salary cap might be 20, 30% higher than it is now. So in the same way, if you were going to have £1 million, spend that now, because £1 million in 5 years' time, inflation, even in the real world, it's going to be worth less at that point.
Yep. So think of the salary cap, pushing it back is dealing with inflation. There you go. All right. They do have one free agent, Zadarius Smith, and he'll probably make over $10 million. I know you wrote an article about this again. Amari Cooper, JOK, Newsom's fifth-year option. Take us through that and what you think might happen there.
Yeah, so ironically, you had Brad on before me. So I dropped a piece about 2-3 weeks ago and said, hey, I think about 12 million is right a year for Zadarius Smith. And Brad, best out there in the business for covering like free agency, NFL wide, dropped his article today. Fully agree. He's got the 12 million as well. So we're expecting Zadarius Smith probably to drop in that range. I think he'll wait all the way until free agency, just because then that's when he can talk to other teams. Obviously, agents do a little bit of a pre-tampering at the combine, so they'll get a sense of what that market is. So it might get done a little bit before that, but I expect it to push through to the off-season, just because, hey, if you're a player at his age, probably the last deal you're going to get over 10 million a year. So you want to look at the market and sign the right one for you. And then after that, we're looking at guys like Maurice Hurst, Anthony Walker. They're not going to be expensive deals, so I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem. There's then the big 3 deals. None of them are free agents this year, but do you want to extend Amari Cooper? That's going to be costly, which they can certainly do. But the issue is going to be, if you're extending him, you're not extending him for next year. He's already under contract for 2024. Extending him for 2025, when, off the top of my head, he's going to be about 32. That's a risky age for a wide receiver, because he might be great now, but you're not paying him for being great now. You're paying for him, is he going to be great when he's 32, when he's 33? Because you're probably going to have to give him 2 guaranteed years. So it might be one way you wait through this season with Amari Cooper. JOK is another one that's a really difficult conversation, because he doesn't play as many snaps as any of the other top linebackers. And then Greg Newsome, I'm not expecting that 5th-year option to be picked up, if I'm honest. I think you go out and you see what that trade market is. If you can get a pick in the region of 50 to 80, I think you've got to take it. The idea that you would be paying he's an above-average slot corner, a slot corner 12.2 million, I'm perfectly fine with that. I would much rather extend Martin Emerson than be keeping Greg Newsome around. It's a great problem to have. I'd much rather have too many great corners, you can't pay them all, than we don't have any good corners and we're getting butchered.
Yeah, fair enough. Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll continue talking Browns. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Holiday gold! The $20 scratch-off?
Has 100 times multiplier, I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million!
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game.
We continue talking Browns with Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report. Shannon Sharp, ESPN's First Take. Are the Browns contenders this year?
You look at Joe Flacco, and he's never been the greatest regular season quarterback, but we know what he represents once he gets into the playoffs. He's a guy has gone on the road and beat Peyton Manning in his building, beat Tom Brady in his building, won a Super Bowl MVP. So we know what he represents, although he's at a ripe age of 38. He still has the arm. He can stretch. He can challenge any area on the field. He can throw the ball 50, 60 yards in an 80-mile-an-hour wind. So he possessed that. But do I think they can win 3 games in the playoffs and get to the Super Bowl? I don't believe they can do that, Stephen A. Do I think they can cause a team some problems? Yeah. I do. But I don't think they can ultimately reach their destination, which is Las Vegas, and get to the Super Bowl.
And Jack, that's probably fair. You cause a team some problem, you get a break or two, though, you end up winning the game. Joe Flacco gives them a chance against pretty much anybody just because you blow a coverage, he'll make you pay. He can – long passes can create some momentum.
I think the biggest thing here is they need the luck in the next 4 weeks. So they've got a lot of injuries, but if they manage to bundle these 4 games over the line, which seems nuts, but when you start looking at the games, the Texans are battered, not battered to the extent of the Browns, but battered to like a level of a normal team. The Bengals aren't what they were. The Jets aren't what they were. The Bears, they're on a little bit of a resurgence, but they're no amazing team. That's not impossible to sit here and talk about 4 wins. I know it's unlikely to win those 4 games, but if you do that, and 12 wins probably gets you the number 1 seed in this AFC. If you get that, look at the home and away splits for the Browns. The home games have been really, really impressive. Away games, not so much. I think this is the time where you need your luck. If we go into the playoffs as the home seed all the way through, luck's more likely to be on your favour at home, especially with how they've played. So I wouldn't rule it out. I think now's the time you need the luck. The injuries are tough, but get the ball out fast, weakens the impact of missing the tackles. You've got your wide receivers in Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore, who Joe Flacco can pick up. You've got Njoku there. I think the offense can continue to go. It's just, can the defense remain good as well? I think there's still a chance for some luck here. So lots of people are doom and gloom. I'm continuing to see that there is a route to chaos here. And it's going to be a bizarre one this year where we're going to overperform expectations. Next year, everyone might be healthy, and we're not quite as good as we are this year. That's just luck of the draw.
I'm with you. Chaos in the AFC sounds good the last 4 weeks to me. You tweeted this out, and I've been thinking this as well. Brown's usage of JOK, kind of confusing. So weeks 1 to 6, 73%, 7 to 9, 52%, 10 to 14, 87%. Wasn't an injury in that middle period, just was still appearing on special teams. So is it game plan specific with him, or I'm searching with you. What have you come up with?
I'd love to ask Jim Schwartz. If I was there and I could ask him one question, that would probably be it. What on earth happened? Because we're up around 90%. So he's had 5 games in his career. This one might have actually been the 6th, where he's played 90% or more snaps. So there starts to be a momentum there. But when you're looking to an extension, this is where it's really interesting. There is no player in the NFL at linebacker that is earning $7 million a year or more without regularly playing 100% of snaps. JOK has never played 100% of snaps in one NFL game. That's going to be a real problem when it comes around the negotiation table, because he might view himself as a really important linebacker. But if you look at the position market, that's not as friendly to him. So I'm intrigued to where that comes to. And that could be one where they come around the negotiation table, because this offseason is the first time both sides can talk. You can't negotiate an extension until year 3 of the rookie contract's done. So they can come around the table and talk about it, but it could be one where the team's going, look, no one's earning $7 million a year or more playing the amount of snaps you do. And then he's going, no, I'm really important, I'm different. There can easily be a tension there that might not lead to a solution. So it could be one where he ends up playing out the rookie deal and then something comes down the line. But it's just an interesting one to watch, because he is different. He's not normal per se as sort of a typical linebacker in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm with you. The other thing that'll throw a wrench into that conversation, he's tied for third in tackles for loss in the league as well. So, that's going to be a tough conversation. If I'm his people, I'm saying one thing. If I'm the Browns, I'm with you. I'm saying I get it. All right, game coming up, Browns-Bears. Bears have created 11 turnovers the last 3 games. Browns have the most turnovers in the NFL. Is it as simple as, boy, if they don't turn the ball over, they're in pretty good shape, or is there something you're looking at even further into this one?
Yeah, no, it really depends what the type of turnover is. Because if Joe Flacco's pumping it 40 yards downfield and he gets intercepted, and then the DB that catches it gets tackled, it's not the end of the world. If you're turning over there, those can be really painful. So turnovers are all counted equally on a stat sheet, but they're very different in terms of what happens. So I've got no issue. If it's 3rd and long and Joe Flacco pumps it 40 yards and it gets turned over, it's whatever. It's a short pump for Corey Bjorkquist. It's not the end of the world. Whereas if we start throwing pick sixes and stuff like that, which doesn't seem to be Joe Flacco's sort of MO, that's where it hurts you. So I think we're in a really good position. You've got Joe Flacco throwing deep. You've got Hopkins that is just a kicking machine. Why not? I think we're going to win this game. I don't think it's going to be as close as it looks. And I think this juggernaut's just going to keep going. But if you were going to lose one of the next 4 games, this is the one to do it because it's not a conference game. So with the tiebreakers coming up, it's all about how you do against your conference. And Bears are NFC, so they're less of an issue. Losing a game to the Jets, the Texans, or the Bengals is a lot more painful because that can be the difference between a wild card or not.
Jack Duffin, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jack.
Thanks a lot.
Jack Duffin, make sure you check him out. Always great stuff. Orange and Brown Report. Really good stuff with the salary cap, free agency. Make sure you read them, follow him on Twitter. Great stuff. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.